back to the YouTube channel Pro Enzo Vids, and this is my thoughts on the Dragons coaching situation, but also just who I think should be the coach for the Dragons in 2024, because it's clear as day that Anthony Griffin won't be there, the hook will be gone. So it's time for the Dragons to start planning for the future and going through, I guess, what coaches potentially that they could sign. And yeah, just a short list, I guess, that I'll give of my opinion on what coaches could suit the Dragons going forward. But before I get into the video furthermore, I just want to say thank you to all the new subs and new support. It's greatly appreciated. And yeah, look, I'm nearing 3,200 subscribers. So if we can get there by hopefully, I'd say the next couple of days, or by next week, I'd say that's a realistic goal, then that's perfect, because that's the aim for my channel. But again, thank you for I guess the recent support really does mean a lot. But the Dragons, obviously. So, you know, the Dragons obviously have a lot of work to do. Not just the coach that's at fault, but the whole board has some issues. And I think for years now, the board of the Dragons has been really, really average. And I don't know, there's too many duds working in there. Like, you know, you don't work, a club doesn't function properly with too many duds in the one building. So they've got to obviously shift some players, some players, I mean. But as for the board, you've got to take some people out and got to replace some better people, I think, going forward. So, but it's a long process for the Dragons. I can't see much improving straight away, but they're not like all rock bottom, I don't think. But there's definitely a lot of issues to mend, and I think it's going to take time. But yeah, again, they're going to have to find a coach very soon, because it's clear, like I said, that Griffin won't be there. So who they go ahead and sign is the question that remains to be seen. But yeah, I'll give my top 5 right now. So starting from 5 to 1, I've got number 5. First of all, I've got Ben Hornby, the current South Sydney Rabbitohs assistant coach and former premiership winner at the Dragons as well. And it makes sense, I guess, if Dragons were to appoint Ben Hornby, because he has a lot of history at the club and has obviously done a good job for the time he was at the club, and his dad was obviously just as big as him at the club at the time. So yeah, I mean, Ben Hornby is an experience, obviously, like as a head coach, but as an assistant, he's been doing his apprenticeship for a while, and it wouldn't hurt if the Dragons took this approach and did sign Ben Hornby, because it would make sense, as he has connections with the area, knows the fans and know him, and he knows the fans, and he knows the area pretty well. So, look, I wouldn't complain if the Dragons did appoint Ben Hornby as coach, because I think it does make sense, and I do think that he is a ready coach, or like a ready-made coach for first grade, I think. So, whether Dragons are looking at experienced coaches or just, I guess, a rookie coach to take over, I'm not too sure. But I do think that looking at someone like Ben Hornby, it makes a bit of sense, wouldn't it? I mean, signing an outside rookie coach is not the way to go, in my opinion, for the Dragons. But because he has played for the club before, and because he knows what the club's like and how it should be ran and stuff, I'd say Ben Hornby would be a very smart pick by the Dragons if they got him. So that's my number 5 right there. As for number 4, I've got another former Dragon that played at the club for many years and was an assistant coach there and an interim coach in 2020, and also went to the Cowboys and is still there as an assistant coach there. And that is Dean Young. And I think Dean Young is a coach that I think would work very well at the Dragons as well, because like Ben Hornby, you know, he knows the area, knows the fans, and knows how the club should be ran and stuff. But I don't know. The Cowboys are, from what I hear, very reluctant to release him. So I don't know if he'll actually go to the Dragons or if they'll actually end up signing him. But it wouldn't be a bad pickup, would he? I think he'd be a pretty good coach for that club. And because I think Dean Young was one of the main reasons why the Cowboys defended so well last year, was because he was working primarily on their defence. So if that's the case, maybe he can, you know, if he came to the Dragons, maybe he can sort of bring that sort of defensive structure to the Dragons. I'm not too sure, but again, a rookie coach, but he's been at the Dragons before and has worked as an interim, so at least the club has an idea on how he does things and how he does coach. But do the Dragons want to go in that direction again and bring Dean Young back as a head coach this time, not an interim or assistant? Don't know, but I think he would be on that short list, I'd assume, as the club does look for names to replace Anthony Griffin, who will be sacked, I reckon. So I'd say Dean Young would be number 4 for me. And you know what? I do remember this before I do go to the next one. In my bold prediction series I do at the start of the year every year, I do remember saying that Dean Young will be the next Dragons coach. So does that come true? Have to wait and see. On to number 3, and I've got another person that's been at the Dragons before and has worked at many clubs, including the Sharks, and won the premiership there in 2016, and obviously has a good track record apart from, I guess, some things he's done off the field, which obviously has kind of ruined his, I guess, chances, I suppose, in getting a head coaching role, as it's a risk, but I don't think that's really necessary anymore, as I think he's learned his lesson. But that is Shane Flanagan, and obviously Shane Flanagan is the current assistant coach at Manly, which if he left Manly, I would be quite disappointed if Shane Flanagan left Manly, because I think he brings a good backbone to our team, and I think he does add a lot to our club. So we're very lucky to have Shane Flanagan at Manly. But look, if he gets a head coaching role, I don't think the club will stand in his way and won't, I guess, make it a hard process for him to leave the club. I think he'll be more than happy to take a head coaching role, as he should, and I think that's what he wants as well. I think he's open to a head coaching role, Shane Flanagan, but he did say that only if a good one comes up, because as of right now, he was saying that he was very focused at Manly and he likes being there. So yeah, look, once a head coaching role does come up for Shane Flanagan, I'm sure he'll take it if he gets offered one, but as of right now, he's happy at Manly, and that's what matters for me anyway. So but as for the Dragons signing Shane Flanagan, it would be huge, because Flanagan obviously was at the Dragons before as more of a, a coaching director, and that's when Paul McGregor was the coach, obviously, and he sort of was working around that sort of area at the club. So, yeah, look, obviously it's hard to judge his time there, as Dragons were not that great either back in 2020 to 2021, where I think he was working there, but maybe now, if he does get a head coaching role there, in more of a situation where he does have a bit more control over the team, other than being a coaching director where he didn't, maybe he could benefit, and maybe we'll see how he really is as a head coach and what he's actually good at, because he's obviously proven himself at the Sharks for many years. So, yeah, maybe at the Dragons he can reinstall some grit and reinstall some pride in that jersey again. And I just want to say also, if Flanagan did go to the Dragons, he'd actually know, I guess, Viliami Fifita and Alex Tutavaki, who are the two young Manly players that went to the Dragons. So maybe he could actually know how to utilise them properly, as they have not played yet. But it's understandable, as they just arrived there. But yeah, he'd know them obviously, and he'd know Jack Bird too. I think Jack Bird, as of recent, hasn't been performing great. So maybe Flanagan can, I guess, get that confidence out of Bird again, and maybe make him that player he once was. I don't know, but Flanagan, we know how he is as a head coach, and I think at the Dragons he would benefit heavily there. On to the next one now, and this is a very bold one, because I don't think many people are expecting me to say this one, but because I had a look at some coaches that are available, I did think that he was someone that, you know what, didn't work at the Tigers, maybe at a club like Dragons, where there's a bit more players that he can, I guess, get the best out of, as they are players that with a lot of class. But I reckon Michael Maguire for the Dragons would not be a bad shout at all. I really like the idea of Madge Maguire going to the Dragons as head coach. I think he'd work really well there personally. I can actually really see that working well, Michael Maguire at the Dragons. I know that in the past I have been a bit critical of Michael Maguire because of his time at the Tigers, and his aggressive approach towards the players was something that I wasn't really impressed with. Or yeah, you have to, I guess, be aggressive to the players, and obviously that's because to get the best out of them. But I don't think Tigers and the players there were players that, because the Tigers are just a weirdly run club, and I don't think the players there were the ones that would take that sort of aggressive approach by the coach, which was Michael Maguire. And I think maybe at the Dragons, they do need to kick up the bum. So I reckon that the Dragons with Michael Maguire, who has that aggressive approach and has that, I guess, that really, fierce in him, I think he'd be really good for the Dragons. And I think he'd know how to get the best out of that side, because look, the Dragons' backline is pretty good, I will admit that their backline is pretty strong, but their forward packs needs a lot of work. It's kind of useless, in my opinion, their forward pack. So Maguire would know how to bring some good players to the club, because I think he has a lot of connections with a lot of players in the game. Obviously, working at the Kiwis is going to help as well, if he was to bring any players that have that, New Zealand Kiwis connection over to the Dragons could help. And yeah, he's obviously shown before he can sign players. So, yeah, we'll see if that ever does happen, Michael Maguire at the Dragons. But I tell you what, I think he'd be really good there. He's got a good track record, apart from his time at the Tigers. But in general, the Tigers and whatever's happening there that was their darkest sort of times. So I reckon at the Dragons, he could be the man to fix them. But I guess the only concern there is it could be like another Tigers 2.0 situation, as the Dragons are still building themselves. So, but I don't know. I just have a vibe that he would be very good for the Dragons and Michael Maguire. And last but not least, the one that I believe should be the coach of the Dragons and the one that I think deserves the role more than anyone else. And I reckon that's Jason Riles, the current Sydney Roosters assistant coach and the former Melbourne Storm assistant coach. I think, look, I really do think that he's someone that would be great for the Dragons because, look, I know he's young and I know he has not coached NRL before. He's only been an assistant for many years, and that's as far as he's gone being an assistant coach. But I think seeing like how he's been as an assistant under Bellamy and Trent Robinson, he's often one of the first people credited by those two coaches about how Riles does, I guess, approach himself to games and how he does coach. I think there's a lot of credit by those two big coaches and Trent Robinson and Craig Bellamy. So obviously they wouldn't have credited him if there wasn't a reason to. So that says a lot then, I guess, about Jason Riles as a coach. But at the Dragons, yeah, it could work. I think he was born in Wollongong too. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. But he does have connections with the Dragons, obviously. Been there before as a player, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, he would be very good for the Dragons, in my opinion. Like, I think he is sort of embarked as next Cameron Serrato type coach and Jason Dimitri, because they're young coaches that were doing their apprenticeship under guys like Wayne Bennett and, I guess, Robinson and Bellamy, like I said. So I think Jason Riles is that sort of assistant coach that will be brought up as a head coach one day. And the Dragons have already met with Jason Riles as well. Like, the Dragons officials have already met with Jason Riles not long ago. So that says a lot about the whole situation there. So could it be fast tracked into a head coaching role for Riles? Have to wait and see. But that there would be my top priority for head coach of the Dragons. But that whole thing there was my top 5 coaches that I would pick for the Dragons to be the Anthony Griffin replacement by 2024. Everyone, thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and comment your thoughts on the video and your thoughts on who should be the next Dragons coach. It's a very interesting situation that's unfolding. So what the Dragons go with, have to wait and see. But yeah, there's a long way to the top for the Dragons.